You're going to have a tutorial. It's nice. My name is Leslie Davis, and I'm from the Office of Global Outreach at the School of Nursing. And we present this workshop in partnership with the School of Public Health, my colleague Shanari Neal. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. And it's part of the series called International Career Pathways. Some of you may have gone to the International Opportunities Fair last week, seen some of the other panels that have been going on the last month or two. This is part of that series. And we have 3 speakers tonight. We're going to start out, we usually go in a different order, but for logistical reasons, we're starting out with Philomena Meehan. Hello. And Philomena has been at the U of M for 15 years, 9 of which have been in the Language Resource Center. And she has her MS in Spanish linguistics from the U of M. And she has an extraordinary amount of experience in computer-assisted language learning and teaching with technology. And this is something that we really, really appreciate at the School of Nursing. She's been instrumental in some really fun projects that we've been doing with technology. She has been a central team member on a lot of projects for LS&A, including Chinese listening comprehension exercises using problem set frame anotext, language and discrimination text using Voyager Expanded Book Toolkit, and Lazarillo, a multimedia application for a 16th century Spanish novella using Supercard. So if you're not already really impressed, there's a lot of history and a lot of expertise here, which we really appreciate. And as I said, she helps us with a lot of projects in nursing. We've been working with her to have some video conferencing relationships with Haiti and India, and coming up next semester, Botswana. So Philomena, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I have to leave, but my excuse will be very interesting for you, I hope. I need to leave because to support another video conferencing class. And actually, it's not a class, which is why I think it might be interesting to you. It's a small research group that Luis Safir Yunus from sociology has formed on the sociology of the body. And for 3 years now, we've been video conferencing outside of class. Usually it's on a Friday, but this semester it's on Monday nights, with a professor and his students at the University Nacional in Colombia. And one of the nice things about this project is that the conversation is in Spanish, so we're not privileging English. But for those of you who don't know Spanish and are still very interested in the topic, everything is translated. So it provides you, if you have an interest in, and you do, the body, an avenue outside of class to perhaps pursue a research topic, either on your own, related to Colombia, with students in Colombia who may share your interests. And the interests are very wide, from pleasure, pain, suffering, tattoos, iconic representations, aesthetics, medicine, and so on. So it's a very nice group. There are only 6 people in it, or maybe 7 every term. And so the excuse is another opportunity for those of you looking to maintain your Spanish language skills or increase them. But I'm from the Language Resource Center, and we're in the lower level of North Quad. It's 1500 across from Sweetland. It's very comfortable. We have sofas and wood paneling because we're on the dorm side, and also it's a new building. And you're all very welcome there. We are a facility, which means we have a lot of resources and collection items. And I thought I'd divide things into 2 camps, really, face-to-face and online, internal and external. So I'll start with some face-to-face and people. Right? We have a tutor and a conversation database linked from our website. The tutor database, if you're looking to be a tutor, or if you need some tutoring or specialized tutoring, it's basically a matchmaking service on the web. We don't verify or vet any of the tutors. We collect people's names who are interested on both sides of the coin. Also, conversation partners, the same thing. People in the community that are looking for practice in English, or if you're looking to continue, again, maintain or improve your language skills, you could sign up looking for a conversation partner with your native, offering your native language, conversation in your native language. The English Language Institute is a department on campus where international GSIs are often taking classes, and they're always looking for conversation partners and for you to join conversation circles. There are language clubs, which you've probably heard about. There are some health-related, I don't know if they're officially clubs, but there are some health-related roundtables. So there was one in epidemiology. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's still going. And also nursing. Are we still doing the Spanish roundtables in nursing? There's a Spanish club. They meet at Espresso Royale. There's a French, Italian. The RC is very language-focused college, and the students there meet every day for lunch, and you're welcome to join. And also they have, it's a different, in every language it's its own word, a social hour, where they might play games or talk about movies, and that's also scheduled at the RC, and you can often see them there in Green Hall speaking in their language, Russian, French, Latin, and Japanese, and Spanish, and German. I went online and saw that there are meetups in Ann Arbor, conversational interest groups in various languages. Again, you may not have a university, U of M, specific community, but it is another avenue if you like face-to-face conversation, or if you prefer the face-to-face. Moving to the virtual, there's a social network called Live Mocha, and there's also a crowdsourcing. What you do is you get an account, and it's a community of people online who are interested in learning languages. And they may be in a course, so there are several students who submit a few paragraphs of their paper, and they say, would you look at this for me? Or I have my speaking test tomorrow. They'll upload an audio file. Would you listen to this for me? And you can provide them feedback. And they will do the same for you. And I know several students here, I overheard Korean students saying, you know, Live Mocha never fails me. I put my question in and somebody always answers it for me. And in the middle of the night, because you know, in Korea it's the next day. You can also work, it has its own currency. I forgot what the currency is. Mocha coffees or mocha beans, I think maybe. And so you can earn, by commenting and providing feedback, you earn currency. And also you can work as a tutor and you earn currency so that if you wanted to access, they also have materials online. You could access some of the materials that they would charge for otherwise. Also linked from our webpage, and is a fairly new service that we're offering and encouraging, is the LRC Language Bank. And this is an opportunity for the U of M community and the local Ann Arbor IPSI community to come together and help each other using their language skills. So you can volunteer, submit your name to our database, and to use your language skills to help translate the projects that we receive through the very same bank. If your language skills, if you're not a native speaker or you're trying to maintain your language skills, we often try to hook you up with somebody, connect you with somebody, with somebody that may be a native speaker so that you can improve your language skills working with somebody that is a little more advanced. Some of the projects, you could submit a project as a student. One afternoon, a grad student walked into the office and was on his way to Chile in a week. And while he knew some Spanish, he was going to be interviewing survivors of the earthquake and in physical therapy. And he didn't know exactly how he should word the questions. He figured he could ask them and then could understand what the people were saying. But he came in with 15 questions and we got them translated for him. Right? So very low stakes projects, nothing legal, and you know, if it's low stakes. There are forms for clinic, Meals on Wheels, Safe House, the nursing class needed, they were interviewing mothers who were participating, or who were not, more importantly, not participating in the WIC program. And so we had the questionnaire translated so that that wouldn't be an obstacle for the women to feed their children. So it's also this idea that you're doing good for the community. This weekend you just missed our Translate-a-thon, which is a marathon weekend where everyone comes together at the LRC, good food, good company, and support. And there were 100 people this weekend translating documents that we've received from the community. Another one of those examples that's very health related is the Open Michigan. There are entire courses and many videos on health education topics in the Open Michigan Bank, and last weekend students were subtitling the Risk Bites videos. And we use a tool called Amara that allows us to, once the English language captions are in there, it's a side-by-side translation. Right in the tool you can enter the translation, and when you're done you save your draft, and all of a sudden you have subtitles on the YouTube video for the client. And so you can use a YouTube URL to create these, and then we will send the subtitle format, the file, sorry, has a special format, and we will send that to Open Michigan so they can put that in their YouTube channel. We have 10,000 films in our collection. So if you're looking for a fun way to just keep in touch with your language skills. They are on-site viewing, however. We don't allow students to check them out, but instructors can. And again, watching the subtitles is a good strategy to build your listening skills. To see the sound, to hear the sound and see the word will often help you build some listening skills. We also have Pimsleur audio CDs. So if you are going abroad or you're going to a conference, this is faculty and students, we have them in several languages, and yes, you can borrow the CDs, and they're very conversational. They take you from hello, greetings, what time is it, how to order food, that kind of a thing. And if we don't have the language for the country that you're going to visit, we're happy to purchase it. So don't hesitate to ask. This part could be a little outdated because there's so much TV on the internet now. But we do have access, we purchase access to various international TV channels. One advantage to this, faculty and students alike, if you're working on a research project, we have permission to record the programming and make that available to you. So where you might not want to have to do that yourself, or you might not be able to do it yourself, depending on the programming, for the channels that we receive, we do have that permission. A lot of people like this tool. Yablov for Spanish, French, German, Italian, and Chinese. It's a subscription that we have. It's a website, and it has largely pop culture, songs, small video clips. And what's nice about it, as you can see here, it has a slowdown feature. It's in the yellow there. So that you can slow it down. You can see the subtitles if you want. You can skip forward and back sentence by sentence, click exactly on the sentence. So it's very user-friendly, as opposed to, let's say, a YouTube video that you're searching to see where was that sentence. You can go sentence by sentence through these. And they've maintained them quite current to interests, and we're happy to give you, it is account-based, we're happy to give you an account so that you can use these. And there are some vocabulary, there's the play game button, there are some vocabulary quizzes based on the materials. Lots of music videos in these, which are often fun. Apart from the medical Spanish, medical French, scientific German, what else do we have in medical? Sorry? Haiti Hub, that's a U of M course though, right? There are a couple U of M courses, medical Brazilian, Portuguese. But the idea in inviting me was that you have a full load and you can't do that, right? So the LRC is starting to collect some of online courses and online materials where because you're not able to enroll in a course, you may be interested in doing a self-paced course online or reviewing some materials on your own, working through the materials on your own. So there are some there for medical Spanish, and I will send out the link. The resources, we don't have them as organized or formatted as nicely as we'd like to. But there are a lot of resources out there. There are places that make their materials available. And there is the Haiti Hub. Leslie, did you want to talk about that now or later? Later, okay. Something that you might not have thought about as a language learning resource, it certainly will be less structured than a course or didactic materials, but online resources, so from authoritative sites, the World Health Organization, the Red Cross, the United Nations, they're translated by professional translators. They're authoritative, they have the right vocabulary words. And this weekend, and in our translation marathons, we were using them as the sources for students to find the right vocabulary words, or, yeah, the right ones. And ways of expressing things, and the level of formality that one might need in a document. But you might use these to build your reading skills and read side by side documents that you need for your own work in class, or just a document, pamphlets, or other materials. So you can be seeing side by side and building your reading fluency and your vocabulary. You could enter those new vocabulary words in online flashcard programs that I'm sure you're aware of for other classes. Well, you could use them for your language vocabulary development as well. Many of them have audio, which is great, and the ability to put in an image. And so there are often 3-sided or 4-sided flashcards. One that we found when we were looking for some resources to support the medical Brazilian Portuguese class was this one. And you can see that there are all sorts of topics, and it's on your phone. Okay, it's a mobile app. So look to mobile apps as well as quick, easy ways that you could, learn a couple more words while you're waiting for the bus or class to start. And again, many of them have audio. This was another nice one in Chinese. You can see the various categories. And does this one have? See? Yes, it also has the audio. And sign language. So those are the kinds of resources. We have physical resources, we have people, and we're very happy to facilitate things for you as an independent learner, but also if you wanted, a group of you wanted to, can you find us someone to talk to? We have contacts with, we work and support the language classes, so we know the professors in the departments, and they have contacts as well. So please don't hesitate to contact us or your hostesses who are coordinating the global health efforts in your schools, and we'll do what we can to help you. Questions? No? Okay, there was a lot of stuff, but we hope you will make use of the resources. And do, if there's a particular language that we don't have anything for that you're interested in, do let us know.
Question. Actually, how many people here have a second language that you have some level of skill in? What languages?
Spanish.
Spanish? Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Korean, okay.
Yeah, and one more plug for the courses, medical Spanish, medical French. We have French, we weren't doing it in French, but we're gonna think about it. The medical Spanish students Skyped every week with third-year interns in Colombia, talking about not necessarily the medical part of diseases, but they analyzed diseases from a cross-cultural perspective. And half the class was done in English and half was in Spanish. So again, I know you can't always take courses, but if you were able to know that some of these courses, and talk to your instructors also. You know, if there's a language component that you'd like to try to fit in, or you'd like the class to connect with someone abroad, do let us know, because the video conferencing is, we have tools now all over campus to make that easy.
I have a question for Lena. Do you have any suggestions for people who study the classical version of the language but are going to a place where it may not be spoken the same way? For example, I speak French, but when I go to West Africa, what they say in Paris doesn't help me very much.
No.
What, do you have a suggested resource, or would it be best to get in a conversation group with West Africans? How would a person prepare in that situation?
I would think about the kind of learner that you are. So are you auditory, or do you like to read? And do a mix of all of them. But knowing that you are going to need to be speaking with people, you might want to look up some people. And especially on this campus, there are student groups for every nation, every language, every cultural and ethnic group. Contact them and see, is there anyone on campus that they will put the message out for you, right? And you may be able to get a partner that way. I would go to the internet as well, to television programs, radio, the media, just listen. And the input, you will learn without trying, which is the other nice thing. And especially if you have a background in French, that will start coming back to you, and you'll notice the differences then. But the media is a great way to learn, and the reading as well. So if you wanted to see what differences there might be in the vocabulary and the syntax. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your kids over here. And mine is at home with someone else putting her to bed, so.
Okay. I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Muhammad Hamami, who is a graduate of Aleppo University in Syria. And Dr. Hamami completed his postdoctoral research in pediatrics, at the Newborn Center at the University of Tennessee in Memphis, and then accepted a faculty appointment at Wayne State University School of Medicine in Detroit, and a research position at Detroit Medical Center, Department of Pediatrics. Dr. Hamami was involved in many clinical studies ranging from the effect of infant formula on bone mineralization in newborns to new childhood vaccine trials. And in 2006, he was granted the American Medical Association Foundation for Excellence in Medicine and Leadership Award for his public health advocacy and community work. He's listed in the Marquis 2006-2007 Who's Who in Medicine and Healthcare, Strathmore's 2006-2007 Who's Who in Healthcare, and Madison's Who's Who in the World 2008-2009. So he was awarded the Health Policy Champion Award by the Michigan Department of Community Health in 2011. So clearly, this is somebody who is not only has the language background, but clearly is very influential in medical circles here in the area. He has served as Executive Director of the National Arab American Medical Association from 2006 to 2009, and then was elected as National President for 2011. And he currently serves as the Chief of Health Operations of Wayne County Department of Health and Human Services, and the Chief Health Officer for Wayne County, where he oversees all health-related operations for the 13th largest county in the nation. So please welcome Dr. Hamami.
Do you want me next to the microphone for? I forgot that you got the long version of my bio, but that's good. My kids hopefully think I'm cool. This is a small setting, so let me ask you, why are you guys here?
I'm interested in public health. I like language, I like public health.
Okay,
I eventually want to work with Hispanic populations.
great,
I want to do global health, I need to figure out how to build the labor skill.
wonderful.
I'm in the school of public health, I'm interested in global health.
Okay.
Great. Together.
So obviously you're interested in not only learning a language because you want to go work somewhere outside, but also I think if we learned anything from the panic involved in the Ebola scare, which we are living in, is definitely the need for us not only to understand the patients, and these are international patients that are coming. So we as health professionals, whether you're the physician or the nurse or the public health official, has to understand not only what they are saying, and we had a case, for example, it was non-related, but it was a pregnant woman from Mali who was French speaking, and when the airport authorities sent her to the ER, fortunately there was a Lebanese doctor on call, and those of you who know Lebanese, they are trilingual, they speak English and French, and he was able to understand all that. And yes, she was vomiting because she was pregnant, not because she had any Ebola or anything. So this is the difference that it can make. So that is one thing to know the language and to speak the language, but it's also very important to know the background of those that are speaking that language. And that is where community medicine and public health are on the front. So. And sometimes you don't have to go outside of the country to learn that you need your cultural competency at its best. So I'll tell you a story. There's a project, a nationwide project that is called the Well Community Project. And the Well Community Project is led by an institution in the Washington, D.C. area, mostly specifically in Alexandria, Virginia. It's called the Samueli Institute. And the Samueli Institute, for those who know enough about it, is led by a physician, Wayne Jonas, who has done a lot of work with the Department of Defense, and mostly in post-traumatic stress disorder and the effect of meditation and techniques on those soldiers that are coming back. So now they're looking at what constitutes a well community. What is the perfect, if you have to think, what is the perfect well community, what is it? And they established something that is called the Council of Elders. And I hope they didn't choose the Council of Elders based on hair distribution or age. But for some reason, I am one of 7 National Council of Elders that are supposed to go to communities and tell them what they are doing wrong or what they are doing right to make sure that their community is well. So I think the first wake-up call that we discovered as the 7 elders is that one size doesn't fit all. And the second thing is that culture is even more important than all the medical knowledge that you have. So we were talking to a Native American community, and of course, the first thing you think about wellness, what do you think about? Tobacco. No smoking. And the minute we started talking about tobacco cessation and smoking and all that, they got pretty much offended. And they said, well, first of all, it's part of our ceremony. And to us, smoking has medicinal values, or it has a role in the purification of the system. So whether you agree with it or not, but can you imagine as a public health professional, you're going to advocate for something that is so deeply rooted. And instead of being confrontational about it or to alienate them as a community, then you need to come prepared by knowing who your audience are. And that can be translated to any different community that you're dealing with, whether inside or outside the United States. So some practices in clinical medicine or in public health has deeply rooted cultural beliefs as well. So whether we're talking about the Southeast Asians or the Asians or the Hispanics and Latino community. One example when I was working in pediatrics is that a baby showed up and the mother, who was of Hispanic origin, a little bit of English, she was complaining that the child is colicky all the time. She was like 3 months old, and she cannot sleep, and always her stomach is complains. Well, she feels that the child is having some stomachache. And upon examination, the first thing we noticed is that around the umbilical cord there was a round brown lesion that was infected, and we asked the dermatologist, and we tried to look for different things, and then it turned out that in the practice of certain groups in the Hispanic community, in order to have an any umbilical button, you put a quarter and wrap it so tight. And actually that quarter caused that infection, but it doesn't take, you do not learn that in a textbook of medicine. It doesn't tell you, look under contact dermatitis because of a coin, because the patient is from so-and-so country. So I think this is where most of the emphasis on learning the language, which is very essential, especially when you're on the front line of community medicine, or if you want to be a globetrotter that goes and help in epidemics or areas where there's need for help. I think the important thing is not only to understand the language, but also to understand the culture and to have a little bit of an open mind when it comes to exploring those cultures, and especially when it comes to cultures that either for media purposes or for our own intrinsic xenophobia, we don't know anything about. So it seems our natural history in the United States that we have a certain ethnicity that is always in the hot seat every 10 years, and I wouldn't tell you which one is now being on the spot, but sometimes it is a big difference to gain the trust of a community as someone who is on their side, rather than the foreigner who is coming to teach them a lesson. I think, are we going to do a panel afterwards, or do we take, okay, so my last probably point to this is that it also makes it easier and much more interesting to learn language inseparable of culture. My wife is a PhD who teaches foreign language, and her whole dissertation was about learning two groups that learned languages. One learned them just by textbooks, and the other that learned them by living the culture and how much different it was. And what is so interesting is that when Philomena was showing those pictures, if you notice those groups that meet, 4 out of the 6, if I counted correctly, had food and had pictures of plates. And this is the best way to learn the language, because around the table, no matter if you understand what they're saying or not, there is harmony and there is sharing of the bread. And I think that's your first step into understanding other cultures. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce our third speaker. Megan Eagle is a clinical instructor in the School of Nursing, and also is a graduate of the School of Public Health and Epidemiology. For 20 years now, she's been providing primary health care services to underserved populations. And she's done clinical research on the healthcare needs of uninsured adults in Washtenaw County, and on the adaptability of group prenatal care models to the family practice setting. She served as a clinical preceptor to adult and family nurse practitioner students, and has also supervised clinical placements for students from the schools of social work, pharmacy, and medicine. Fluent in both English and Spanish, her language skills have played an integral role in effectively communicating with the range of individuals that she serves. Megan's interest in global health began as an undergraduate, and she's recently become involved in global health projects again after many years spent working with immigrant populations in in the United States. Her current projects include collaborating with nursing faculty from Mexico on developing training programs to help future nurses address the diabetes epidemic, and piloting a Train the Trainers intervention for community leaders and midwives in Ecuador to improve their response to life-threatening situations in pregnant women and newborns. So I will turn the floor over to Megan. You can tell us all about what you're doing now.
All right. So, hello everybody. It's great to see you all here tonight, and it's always interesting to me to sort of take a step back and think about how I got here. I know one of the themes was sort of language skills and the role they play in our professional endeavors and in our careers. And one thing that struck me was actually, since I graduated from my undergrad with a degree in anthropology and a minor in Spanish, every job I've had except my job at the University of Michigan, I believe I got because of my Spanish language skills. And kind of ironically, it's actually at U of M that I've used my language skills in the greatest variety of ways. I'm going to sort of share a little bit of biography because I've been in a number of different places. Right now I find myself often working with students in clinic in Southwest Detroit and trying to help them think through ways that they can improve their language skills and their familiarity with the culture. And similarly, when I take students to Ecuador, where they're actually more immersed, they stay with families, they're working side by side with healthcare professionals, or at least observing and then doing health education projects. I'm struck by the fact that I absolutely agree that spending time using the language with the people who speak the language and immersing yourself in culture as well as language helps a lot. And I think sometimes we think you have to leave to do that, and you don't. You can do that here in Washtenaw County. You can certainly do that here in southeastern Michigan. Philomena mentioned the wide variety of graduate students. But the other thing is if you're going to do global work, it really is in your best interest to get your language skills to a certain place before you start. Not that you have to be perfect, not that there won't be misunderstandings, not that you won't at some point make one of the linguistic gaffes that everybody makes that gets a great laugh from your audience. But if you really cannot understand what's going on around you, you get less out of it. So now, as I'm working with students who want to use their skills either in the community in Southwest Detroit, in the community here in Ann Arbor, or come with me to Ecuador, what I'm interested in is, so what are all these myriad of ways that we can get to at least the level that we can then go and have a start? And I think Philomena sort of shared a lot, but I will put in a plug for, I think the online stuff is great, and it's a great way to do that discipline. Remember the first year we did this panel, John Pate was here, and he said, you know, he really brought back his Spanish by just making himself do 20 or 30 minutes a day. And you think, oh my God, I don't have time. It's like, well, come on. You know, we struggle with anything that we want to do around that, right? I mean, it took me being humiliated by the sophomore class when they wrote their papers on health promotion and did self-assessments and figured out that their own physical activity level was not enough to maintain their health. I'm like, okay, I have to find time to exercise, right? I can't teach this class again and have the students do that much better than me. But if I can drag out the time to exercise somewhere in my schedule, people can take 20 or 30 minutes to kind of refresh skills. For me, music, right? Lyrics have a rhythm. There are plenty of performers whose songs are actually stories. And if you train yourself to actually understand the whole story in the song, you've not only learned some vocabulary, and with colloquial expressions, you've also learned, you know, whole phrases or sentences, and that helps. I think, though, if you can find a language partner, that helps a lot. And I would encourage you maybe to take the opportunity to see it as a way to get to know someone in Ann Arbor whose paths you might never cross with. So if you end up with a partner who's an international graduate student, that's great. If you end up with a partner who's just here working and raising a family, I think that's even better because you'll get a view of this community that you never would have had before. So those are my sort of general thoughts. The first time, I did learn my Spanish kind of through immersion though. So I went and lived in Peru for a year as a college junior, but I had not been taking Spanish in college consistently up to that point. So I learned my Spanish initially in junior high. And I have Senor Puente to thank. He was incredibly strict. He was also from Ecuador, where I, many years later ended up working, but Ecuadorians have a nice, crisp, easy to understand accent, which was nice. But he made us work hard. And then I went to a small high school that did not have Spanish classes. I actually took Spanish at U of M as a high school student. And studied literature of the Golden Age because it was the only, in Spanish, because it was the only thing that fit my schedule. This does not teach you vocabulary that's really useful for doing healthcare with immigrant communities in Southwest Detroit, to study Golden Age literature. So thankfully I decided to go somewhere else later, but I think I had enough of a base and was determined enough to get my, to get as much as I could out of the experience that I did okay, even without maybe what some programs would have required before I got there. But the techniques that you use here, which is really looking for opportunities, whether it's for half an hour, to really make yourself think and speak in your second language, even if you're faltering and even if your grammar is bad, pays off incredibly. And my tactic in Peru was actually not to take classes that the other foreign exchange students were taking, to consider myself an anthropology student in their third years of studies and simply hook myself to that cohort of anthropology juniors there and become a member of their classes, their social group, all of that. Made for some humiliating writing experiences in terms of writing all my papers in Spanish and trying to get away with looking like a college junior when I wrote and spoke initially like an 8-year-old maybe, then like a 12-year-old, and I think by the time I left I actually could write and speak like a non-native speaker who was in fact 21, rather than sounding like I was 5 or 10 or 12. But you don't get to sound 21 unless you're willing to speak when you still sound like you're 5, or you still sound like you're 12. And people really are tend to be very generous when you're learning languages. So I think, is that enough intro? I was sort of intro remarks for now. Oh, the funny thing about my journey to Ann Arbor is, after speaking Spanish at work almost every day, I taught adult literacy and nutrition in Tijuana, Mexico. I worked for Head Start in Watsonville, California. Then I worked for a clinic. Then I went back to nursing school, but in San Francisco, where, one of the reasons I got my nursing aid job was because I spoke Spanish. Had clinicals where I got this great clinical site because I spoke Spanish. Had a research job doing NICU follow-ups all over Northern California because I spoke Spanish. Worked in Texas, South Texas at a rural clinic for 5 years because I spoke Spanish. I mean, probably also because I was a nurse practitioner, but mostly because, partly because I spoke Spanish, and then Ann Arbor is where my family is, and I had the opportunity to come here to a clinic associated with the School of Nursing to teach a little bit and see patients. And the one thing that made me sad was I thought, I won't use my Spanish anymore. And we started with 5 Spanish-speaking patients. After 1 year, we had 500. And then we settled at about 1,200 Spanish-speaking patients within 2 years of me getting here. So you will use your language skills anywhere in the United States when you least expect it to. And I would say that actually applies to the other languages that people mentioned. You will use Arabic all over the United States pretty much. You will use Korean in a lot of places now. So you'll use your language when you don't think you will. And it was here that I got the chance to use it in research to really collaborate with people in Mexico and Ecuador, which is something that wouldn't have been open to me in my purely clinical world. But the big surprise for me really was to think that I was letting it go. And, you know, 50–60% of my patient schedule here was in Spanish after the first couple of years. So, anyway, yeah.
I'm curious, did you get Spanish-speaking clients because you spoke Spanish, or were they coming anyway? I mean, you know, the availability of somebody on staff who speaks Spanish might have attracted those people.
No, I think that's why. It was word of mouth. I mean, we had 5 families that were already coming to the clinic, but when people realized that they could come and did not need to worry about, you know, phone interpreter. I mean, because the clinics were already trying to be good about not using family members as interpreters. But people don't love phone interpreters, and in fact, people really, really, when they're sick or when their family is facing a crisis, they want to be able to talk to someone in their native language, and they want not only the words understood, but much as you said, they want the concepts understood. You know, so they want you to actually be able to look at the belly button and know what it's a treatment for and say, you know, I think your kid has a nickel allergy, so maybe the quarter wasn't the best idea in retrospect, and please put tape over her buttons of her jeans when she's older, you know. But they want you to know if it's Spanish. They want you to not look like they're crazy if they say that they thought a susto was part of what brought their diabetes on. Anyway, I will stop there so that we can do open questions or next speaker. Do we have a next speaker?
No?
No? You guys can speak? Okay. I'll sit at the table.
Are there questions? Anyone?
I'd like to hear more about what you're doing in Southwest Detroit and what sort of population you're seeing.
Well, so, ta-da. There we go. Okay. Well, so it's Southwest Detroit as my clinical practice as a clinical instructor at the School of Nursing. So I work at an agency called Community Health and Social Services, or CHAS, which is one of the biggest FQHCs in Southwest Detroit. And I work as a nurse practitioner when I'm there. So I basically see patients aged newborn to 90s. I don't do prenatal care there. I did do prenatal care at my old clinic. But I'm also involved in doing some patient education workshops and stuff. So right now we're looking at the learning needs of families that are expecting babies and families with young babies. Because there's no way that you can answer all of those questions in a quick prenatal visit.
I think to add to what you mentioned, 2 things. One is there is definitely a difference between what you learn in textbooks and the spoken languages. And maybe it's not too much in Latin-based languages, but it's absolutely different in, let's say, Arabic. So, for example, I went to lecture in Morocco, and their official native, well, it's a mixture of French and slang Arabic, and I speak English, and we couldn't understand each other. We had to speak a formal Arabic, and that is the language of textbooks, which not everybody is fluent in, but this is the best way to understand each other. So definitely when you're talking to people from different socioeconomic levels and different backgrounds in education, this is a true factor. So CHAS is one example where there are many versions probably of Spanish that are spoken. I don't know if when I was here last, I told you about our FQHC in the city of Hamtramck. We got an FQHC and it's now the 3rd year that it's in business. And Hamtramck, for those of you who do not know where it is, it's bordered the city of Detroit. It's 2.1 square miles, but they have 23 spoken languages. In the clinic, I have every sign translated into Arabic, Polish, Bengali, and English. So Spanish isn't the usual suspect that you always find there. And beside the language line, I had to diversify the staff. So I have a medical assistant who's Bengali, or from Bangladesh, a nurse who speaks Polish, an accountant who speaks Arabic that translates on the side. So sometimes you have to be very innovative in accommodating the community that you're serving.
My question actually relates to what you just said, but for both of you, because you work in Southwest Detroit where there are Latinos of many backgrounds, you know, there's Cubans, there's Mexicans, there's Ecuadorians, there's Guatemalans. And in Detroit, Dearborn, and Hamtramck, you have many, people from many Arabic-speaking countries. How do those differences play out on a daily basis? I mean, just knowing classical Arabic or classical Spanish obviously is not very useful in those settings. But how does a person, I don't know how to ask my question, how do you create a situation that makes it work in all the various ways?
Okay. The differences between spoken dialects in Arabic can be very extensive, but yet the basic concept is still the same. So I think it comes with more exposure and practice to understand each other. Those that are from the Levant area, so we're talking basically Syria, Lebanon, northern part of Jordan, have a very close, easier dialect than, let's say, those that are in the Gulf area, or those that are on the west in Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia. I'll give you an example of my son, Shan. He is studying classic Arabic at school, and he's exposed to our dialects at home. It happens that I am from Syria and my wife is from Lebanon, and although it is literally two bordering countries, there are many use of words that are different. And I think he's very talented that he knows which words to use with me and which words to use with his mother when he's talking about something. So for example, a cup has two different words in Syrian dialect and in Lebanese dialect, but it's one word in classic Arabic. So this comes with practice and with understanding more. But to simplify it, I think it is not too extreme where you cannot understand each other. You might have some difficulties and you might need to use some gestures to interpret what you're saying, but I think it's still doable.
A shout out. Yeah, and I think similarly, you're quite right that at Chas we hear a lot of different regional accents, including occasionally those from the New Yorkers or the people from, or my own patients from Texas who actually don't generally get through any conversation in completely one language or completely the other. So, and the dialect is actually slightly different in terms of which words, and the code switching is a little different between South Texas and New York on when you'll switch between your languages. But there sort of are, some rules. But, what I've found is because people are more familiar with either textbook Spanish or Mexican Spanish, my students who speak some Spanish don't have that much trouble communicating with the patients who are from Mexico, but I will sometimes have students come out of the room and say, you should see so-and-so, I'm having trouble understanding her, and that will be most likely someone from the Caribbean. So it will be someone from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, or Cuba. Whereas they can easily understand people from Mexico because that's what they're most familiar with. Only some difficulty with people from Central America and more distance when you get to the islands. So yeah, and I would say for me, it's experience. It's just repeated exposure. My accent probably shifts slightly, and my vocabulary will shift slightly in Spanish depending on who I'm talking to. But that's taken years to get there. But you sort of, one of the ways to tell, I think, which dialect is the one that you are most comfortable in. Way back, I think my more formal South American Spanish was my strongest. And I worked for 5 years in South Texas. And the only people that I am comfortable telling dirty jokes in Spanish to are people who sort of have more of northern Mexico, South Texas dialect, because otherwise I'm afraid that I will misspeak and be not quite walk that very, very fine line between being funny and being offensive. So I can do clinic in a wide variety of dialects, but I can't tell jokes in all of them yet.
The funny thing about Spanish is every Spanish group says the other ones talk too fast. It's like everybody's not talking fast.
I actually would beg to differ, because the opinion around CHAS, where we have staff who are from Puerto Rico, from the Dominican Republic, from Mexico, from Ecuador, I would say the consensus at clinic is that the Dominicans talk fast, the Cubans speak the fastest.
Cubans the fastest?
Yes.
Okay.
They also don't enunciate, which is maybe how come they get accused of speaking the fastest. Their consonants sometimes soften to the point of, if you're not listening carefully, it sounds like a string of vowels, and that makes it harder to decipher.
What you said about going somewhere and being there to teach someone, especially all of us interested in global health, one of our internships were there for such a short time, and obviously language is one of the tips. What do you recommend to build that trust? So they're going to see us for 3 months max?
I think trust comes, I mean, those communities that are welcoming you are very, they have a great emphasis on hospitality, and they understand that you're there as a guest and coming to help. And if they sense that you're doing this because you believe in it, and trust is a given. I think mistrust is earned rather than trust. And mistrust is when we go with a preconception or with a little bit of apprehension that we're going into a foreign society, or we want to go there and implement our beliefs or our practices. So sometimes it's not the cultural difference as much as the cultural practices. So I was in the old city of York in England, and they have one of the oldest walls, and in between the old city they had a Starbucks. And to walk there and find the only southern slang guy from Texas having a cafe latte is probably something that the natives, the Brits, are going to look at us as like, those arrogant Yankees are coming here. So I think these are some of the things that, unfortunately, sometimes we don't pay attention to. But it's a given that if you go there and you are going with an open mind and a willingness to help, then chances are you'll be treated very well and like royalty. Now, that comes with preparation before you go, a little bit of homework, and they are a very helpful society, whether you're going to parts in the Arab world, Egypt, Syria, even the Gulf area, or you're going to Latin America or any part of the world. They do understand that you have a short period to spend with them, and they accommodate your shortcomings when it comes to communication. And they're very helpful when it comes to that.
I would just add, I think one of the things when you're going, particularly for those of you in public health, going on an internship, even if you're there working on an intervention project rather than working on a data gathering research project, to see it as that you're there to learn as well as to teach, that you're there to explore and get feedback from the community that you're working in about whether the intervention is worth doing or is it bunk. You know, so go with an open mind, that in fact you're going to learn, and that 12 weeks is mostly a learning and a bit of teaching. And I think when people pick up on that humility, sort of knowing that you don't know everything and really trying to be careful not to come across like you think you know everything, is helpful.
And remember, they're also looking to learn from you. So you'll find those students very enthused about speaking to you in English because they also look at it as a way of strengthening their communication skills. And you know, that's, oh, America, and then tell me about so-and-so. So, yeah, it's a two-way street.
So I don't know if you guys would necessarily be able to answer this, maybe today, because you mentioned French. I was just, with that question you were discussing with Spanish and Arabic, I was curious, since I'm interested in learning French, how it is with French. If you learn a more European like French, how is it trying to translate that to West Africa?
So just like the languages that they were talking about, there's a lot more colloquialisms. Many people don't speak, they weren't educated in French. They don't tend to use as many tenses. You know, like, like if you study French, there are tenses in French that, what is the pre-perfect? I don't know what that is in English. There's no corollary to that. But when you go to West Africa, you'll find that things are pretty much in the present or the past. And then there's just a lot of colloquialisms. It's funny, I was in Mali once, and they would be speaking French, but when they got to the word money, they said money. They did not use the French word for money. So it's very colloquial. The accent is different, and the tenses are different. Those would be the main things I would think, and that's probably true of Spanish. And
Yeah, some of the funny tenses we don't have in English actually are sort of culturally very important in Spanish. So managing the subjunctive is actually very helpful. We are so definite, in English that, and sometimes can come across rude, whereas I wish that it would be, I wish it were, is much more, much more Spanish phrasing, and once you have it, you can't think about saying, ojalá que fuera. I wish it were that way, which there's actually a borrowing from Arabic in the Spanish in that phrase. But you can absolutely communicate using only the present tense and the words for tomorrow, yesterday, last year. And I tell this to students, the weaker students who are coming, you can get your point across if you only speak the infinitive and say tomorrow he to go yesterday. Not grammatically beautiful, but we know that you're trying to say he was going or he went yesterday. The thing that I thought of, though, about dialects is both the Language Resource Center and also Asquith Media Library really have some incredible film collections with documentaries and also now fiction movies from all over the world. So I was thinking, if I were trying to get my ear ready to go somewhere where the Spanish wasn't what I'm used to, or if I were you and trying to go to West Africa for French, what films have come out in the last 15 years? And listen and watch movies, because that helps adjust your ear to a different dialect. And subtitles if you need them, because sometimes the dialects are different enough that you can't hear it.
That's a very important point, right? Because once you have the foundation, and I think I'm not a linguist, but probably the best way is to learn the proper French, I guess. But then everything else comes with being exposed in practice. And again, I'm going to use those two boys to embarrass them more. One understands the Egyptian dialect, which is completely different from what we speak at home, and he only understands it because of TV. Right?
Who knew? Is it the cartoons or the soaps that come out of Egypt?
all the Turkish dramas.
Ah. So, which means that for speakers of Spanish, you can learn Venezuelan dialects quite well, because a lot of the soap operas on Univision are out of Venezuela.
Any other questions? So everybody's going out and getting in a conversation group tomorrow, right? And getting some tapes and apps on your phone.
I'm very happy that I saw that presentation, because I was asking if this is available for all ULM students. I think I still have a student ID. I'm going to look at that Yabla and the other sources. In fact, my son, who believes that Messi is the god of soccer, wants to learn Spanish, where I correct him that in Argentina they probably do not speak Spanish, do they?
Hablan castellano.
So he said his goal in life is to learn Spanish and
become an Argentine citizen and play for their national team.
Ah, all right. You got a dream.
so he bought a software for Spanish that he didn't touch
So I
yet.
used it.
So I think I'm going to hook him on the UFM resources.
We use Yabla when the students are getting ready to go to Ecuador. We encourage everybody to get a 3-month account and use it the 3 months before leaving. I think it helps as long as they do actually use it.
Is that presentation online somewhere? We missed the beginning of the presentation.
You know, I'm gonna ask her to email me the PowerPoint, and make sure that you sign in on the sheet that's going around, and then we'll email it out to you.
And if anyone wants a list of my picks of the movies in the Spanish, once I had a student who was doing an independent study with me on Spanish language, and one of the things that she was going to do as one of her activities for getting her Spanish up to speed, which I think this was a planned independent study that didn't happen, but I made a list for her of films that the LRC has that she could go and view there. So I have they have thousands, but I have a short list of sort of Spanish films that are either unique in terms of their culture or health related, or things that have to do that are important to look at if you take care of immigrants in the States. So
The last point, I think the key is, regardless which language you want to learn or why you want to learn it, I think the key is practice. So to embarrass the other one, they both read and write Arabic, but Sham is more fluent in spoken language than Jude, the little one, because with each other they speak English, and there was a period when Sham was the only child that he spoke to us in Arabic, so that was the practice. And although Jude has a great vocabulary, when we ask him to speak to us in English, he said, "Oh, I'm shy, I don't know, I might make a mistake." It's good, it's okay to make a mistake. I think practice is what's going to make you better.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about making mistakes. I studied Russian, and one of the best things about learning language is you make some really funny mistakes along the way, and that's a great icebreaker when people realize you're really trying and you didn't actually mean to say what it sounded like you said. And you never make that mistake again because you remember those misunderstandings. They make good stories.